Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, weekly chat between two friends where we crystallise our thoughts and organise them into categories and help each other come to conclusions, and hopefully you as well. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Majic.
And this week we're going to talk about ideas in general as a concept. Because we're both so full of ideas, aren't we?
So full.
We've got lots of ideas. And
every day.
There's lots of aspects to it. There's sort of like who has an idea, protecting ideas, this idea of, I think, like the implementation of an idea versus the sort of origin of an idea. Who owns an idea? What do you do? How do you choose an idea? All these different things.
Selling an idea.
Selling an idea. Selling a dream.
Convincing people that your idea is a good idea. Being the best at ideas.
Being the best at ideas. Having the best idea. Procrastinating and just not doing anything because you haven't got that one great idea. Thinking that one idea is going to save you, is going to make everything brilliant. Holding on to an idea, banging on about it for years and never doing anything about it. So many things. And I just watched a David Lynch thing about an analysis of David Lynch's Mulholland Drive this morning, and it was all about how much of his work is about ideas and falling in love with an idea and a dream and all that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. So there music.
You go. There you have it.
Look at my big face. I'm on the big camera today. So my face is going to be too big. After last week, I just about got our faces the same size. Now I've ruined it because I want my bokeh balls. Okay.
Your what?
Bokeh balls are the circle. The sort of out of focus highlights you get when you put a shallow depth of field onto some fairy lights, for instance.
Okay.
How's it going, Ivanka?
I've spent no time grooming my background, as you can see. So I must put in more effort. How's it going? Well, it seems Donald Trump's got COVID. Yeah, well, I don't know how good that is a month before the American election.
Oh, I
don't know. Anyway, I know
he shouldn't
this.
have got tested, should he? If he didn't want to get COVID.
Then he wouldn't have known about it. Is that stolen? It's good though, funny. I've had some Twitters this morning, and I've had some Twitters yesterday as well. Yesterday I tweeted because Ivanka Trump's obviously getting some grief.
Okay.
That seemed quite popular with my fans, my mates. And other than that, I really don't know how I am. I feel a bit like I'm a bit nasal. I realise now.
Oh no, COVID.
Like I'm a bit blocked up.
Are you wrapped up, or is it just I can't really see behind all this stuff? You surely?
No, I'm not. I've got a dress on.
Just like, okay.
A frock,
okay.
as they say. Nothing. The child demanded that she was sent to nursery this morning in tights, long sleeve t-shirt, a skirt, because all the other children are wearing tights. And I was like, aren't you going to be too hot? No, she said, Mummy, tights are just leggings with the socks attached. I was like, okay, fair enough. So we'll see how hot she is.
She's not wrong.
She's not wrong. she's
quite the idea.
But if that's how we're going to go, so that's what we did this morning. That's the debate in our house. So I'm expecting her to come back really hot and sweaty. She also wanted to take winter slippers. This is my reality. And
Okay.
I'm not having highfalutin ideas about amazing things.
About the very nature
Being
of
really
ideas.
clever, of course. Yeah, that's it really. And how are you, Michael? You got wet on your way to the studio.
I got wet this morning. I watched I've got that Donald Trump Biden debate. It's given me like a rash.
Watch it.
I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched the highlights in the next morning as I was working out, and I just my kind
Did
of
your
like
heart rate keep going
my
up?
effort
Spiking.
levels went up to like went into the red, which is like 160 170 BPM like heart rate. I was just like, what the I mean, it was kind of amazing, but just awful as well. But like, just it's nice to see him being told to shut up for a change. But it was it was just hopeless. But the intensity of that workout has given me like a rash at the top of my bum somehow. So thanks to that, Donald Trump, I've got a sore bum. It's fine now, but when I sit on the couch, it hurts my bum, and I'm blaming Trump. So, not a rash, but like chafing.
Not at all what I expected you to tell me this morning, I have to say.
Hey, it's all about vulnerability, isn't it? Or is that just TMI? Too much information. That happened this week. We'll just leave it at that, but I will say that, last week I was talking about driving over the Swiss border. I didn't realise that, like, that weekend they were having a referendum on whether that was still going to be possible. But they voted to still let it be possible. So thank you, Switzerland.
They do like a referendum, don't they, in Switzerland?
Well, they've got their own way of doing things, and it seems to work pretty well. They've got some pretty low inequality compared to many other countries, and everyone's got a gun. Ideas. I try to avoid ideas these days myself. So I've got too many things I'm trying to finish. I think it's important. I think ideas are cheap. I think that's something that a lot of people don't realise. What do you think about that? Are ideas cheap? Good ideas.
The delay here is caused by me contemplating my answer, and these are filling words. No, so I this week had two conversations that are relevant. One with somebody who's approximately my age, and we were talking about stuff that was worky. And during the conversation, we had 2 or 3 good, actionable, immediately doable ideas. Not world-changing, not dramatic, just nice ideas. Yeah, we could, look at us. It's not even 9 o'clock. We've had 2 great ideas. Off we went and we spent the day. And then we've also got an apprentice who is much younger. So one of the objectives I've set her is just reading stuff. Any stuff, listening to any podcast, doing anything. Because it's like, you can't really have ideas unless you think about things and have things to think about. So in one way they are cheap, but in another, I think you have to put quite a lot of stuff into your brain that takes time and energy to help you have ideas. And that is...
That's definitely a good angle on it, because I used to have so many more musical ideas all the time, and sometimes I just sort of feel like, well, I've tried out all of the ideas I had, and they were all like, oh, what if I vocoded a cello, and now I've got a cello and a vocoder, and I've vocoded it, and I know what that sounds like. It wasn't quite what I pictured in my dreams, but right. That's the sort of thing that I used to kind of like, that used to keep me awake at night. Oh, if you like sampled this and put it onto a record and then scratch that, that sound amazing. So you get all these ideas and you just like make it, it's your mission to try and like try them out. But these days it's quite rare for me to have like a musical idea, which is a bit depressing. But I think part of that is because I don't really listen to any music. It's not like I didn't even listen to music to work out this morning. I just couldn't be bothered with it. Like there's some of those pop songs I'd have had enough of, and all the music that Apple's thing recommends to me is too boring, or it's just like sort of a bit. I'm sort of bored of everything, so I don't listen to any music, so I don't get any music ideas. So, but then that's the only way to do it, but you've got to sort of like expose yourself to. And I do get the ideas when I start listening to it, but then But also, you don't want to have ideas all the time. What you said is like, I've stopped having ideas. Sometimes it's like I've had this running idea for writing something, and every time I sit down to write it, the idea of it I'm quite enjoying. So like when I'm paddleboarding, I'm like telling myself a story of things I'm going to write, and then I get to write it and I'm like, this is actually not a very good idea. Yeah, like the idea of an idea, like it's like when it's still just an idea and you haven't actually had to put pen to paper.
Yeah, it's got like all the promise in the world.
Be amazing. But then it's everything once you actually like put it through the filter of actually having to do it, implement it. It just has the same problems that all your other ideas that you haven't finished had. And like this, so maybe just stop having new ideas. But it is a fun feeling to have an idea.
It is. It is. It's true.
Isn't it?
It's full of promise.
Don't you just love it?
It's got everything. It's just full of dreams and excitement and hope. and energy and enthusiasm and everything good. All the good feelings.
Yeah, and you're just like, and then I can get like, it's like, I've got this idea, but I've got no time to work on it, and I'm becoming bitter. I've got to quit my job, and so it's
yeah. I think though that's like the scale of the idea. There's the idea that's like a whole new thing, and then there's the idea of like how to fix a thing. So here's the thing that already exists.
Right.
I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to make it, and then I've got an idea.
Right.
This could work. Those are two. There's like this scale thing happening.
The idea is I have that most frequently where I'm banging away at a programming problem and I haven't had a break for a while. And I go for a wee and then I'm like, it just comes to me like that. I'm like, and I thought I'd thought of everything. And I thought I was completely like kind of banging the bottom. I was like, I'm never going to solve this. And then I go and I just go, you just see a completely different perspective on it. I'm like, I could just step back and do this. And then, the idea comes to you and you sort of have to make space for ideas. That's why meditation can be a bit tiring because when you're working...
Come out of it with a to-do list.
Yeah, exactly.
All these things I've got to make now.
And when I was like smoking a lot of cannabis, I was very proud of my huge, enormous, endless list of ideas. Like, I was quite proud. I remember showing my dad and like I had these pages and pages of like robots doing this, like ideas for like stories, effects, programs. I don't know, all like different kinds of things. But like, I didn't quite have that respect that I have now for the. Well, I think the hardest thing in the world is to pick one idea and go with it when you've got like a few.
Well, that's partly because you're going to find out all the things that are wrong with your idea. Mm-hmm. It's like, as soon as you start, it's like, but yeah. But I think that is part of it, the picking. What's going to work? That's a depressing look at it, but on the positive.
You're far away from it. When you're far away from something, it just looks like a beautiful oasis of joy. And then when you get close, you're like, oh, these brambles look a bit dangerous. Oh, that's not very clean, that water there. Oh, what's happened here?
The sun's a bit hot.
And you have to, God, I don't know if I can stay here all day.
It's true.
You fall in love with ideas. But you also, it happens with people as well. You sort of fall in love with your idea of a person as well.
Oh,
like,
yes.
You can do that. That like a crush. You develop a crush on someone because you got this idea of who they are that you can only have because you haven't, as Alain de Botton would explain, like that you haven't actually met them and you don't know their problems and you don't know their smells and you don't know like all the things that are annoying about them yet. So it's easy to fall in love with an idea that you are keeping a safe distance from.
Yeah. Totally. I think that's what's exciting about ideas. And that's why people get really excited. And they want to tell people about their ideas. You're like, let me tell you about my thing.
Or they like want to make you sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, before they tell you their ideas. That's always fun. I've had a couple of those in recent years where like someone's reached out to me on LinkedIn and I've said, I'll have a chat with you. And then they'll be like, can you just sign an NDA? And then they're like 20-page
NDA.
Yeah. And they sort of grudgingly explain their idea. It's like travel website. And you're like, it's like if even if I was interested in this subject, do you know how much work it would be to do your idea? I haven't got time to do your idea. But a lot of people are very protective. And I don't know, like some ideas feel very hard won. Some ideas like some people maybe, it's like, I've had the one big idea and that just, you can get really protective of that. And you feel like you own it and you feel like if you share it, it will be stolen.
Yeah, but I mean, we talk all the time about the fact that there is no substitute really for sharing your idea to get it to be fed and better. Because it's not just the brambles that other people will see; it's also the ways through the brambles and the. So we had this again on there was a group meeting, 3 or 4 of us on the meeting, and I'd been doing something, and I was like, this isn't. And somebody just pointed out something so obvious on a small change of wording that made it immediately infinitely better, and I was like, Yeah, and that's why we need fresh eyes on a problem, because you cannot do it all by yourself. So I'm not, I don't subscribe to the whole, or we don't subscribe to the whole, my idea
thing. Creaky. This is a creaky chair week. I'm just going to say it
so
that I don't have to try and edit them out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like editing between the words, trying to get the creaks out.
Might need a new chair.
People, it's like sharing an idea, putting an idea out there. Definitely, sometimes you won't appreciate how much other people can bring to an idea if you do share it. I saw this thing about, I saw this post about like indie developers. You're not in competition with each other, and how like shops of sort of similar kinds, if they are co-located, because I always saw that as like there's this slightly cynical thing of the best place to set up your ice cream stand is next to your competition, because that sort of makes the equal amount of beach that someone's got to walk to find either one. There's like I always found that a bit gross, but like if you do sort of set up shop near some other people doing some similar stuff and you start like working together, you can make a bigger pie for all of you was
totally.
What I was reading about.
Yeah,
I find that a bit like counterproductive, and I'd be interested in your thoughts.
It's like you're creating a market, you're creating a bigger demand. Yeah. Like if you're known as the ice cream street, then people coming to the street will come for ice cream. It's that sort of because here in Sutivan, where I'm currently living, over the winter there is nowhere open to eat out at all. And we were talking about opening. Somebody was talking about that, and I was saying, you kind of the first time you do it, they would go, well, I suppose if there was a market, people would do it. And I was like, I think you need to create the market in this instance, because you need to leave it something open all winter so people start doing it, and then enjoying it and experiencing what it's like to go out for a pizza on a winter's night without having to drive anywhere, for it to become something that you desire. Or so I think that whole setting up around the competition and creating competition is I don't know if that answers that point though.
What it does touch on is how like trying to have someone else get your idea. Like when you've got like communicating an idea can be an interesting experience, to put it mildly. Like when you've got something in your head and sometimes you're just like, why can't you imagine this thing that I'm imagining? Well, because it kind of took me a long time to get to this vision of the thing, and I'm going to have to put some marketing work in to make you see my vision. And I think sometimes you can, it can be hard to kind of get across what made you fall in love with it.
Yeah. Totally. And I think that selling the idea thing is
How do you do that?
I don't know. I mean, you should just watch my child trying to persuade us that we want to listen to her music all day long.
Just persistence approach.
It's like, no, but yes, but I haven't. So last night we had a democracy playlist where everyone got to choose a song in order, so that, we did listen to ABBA.
Okay.
She likes ABBA and Michael Jackson.
Good choices.
Good choices, but also Baby Shark and stuff like that. And then there's this new watermelon sugar thing.
Great.
So we had, but we had to then sell her on the idea of democracy, but she's much more keen on dictatorship when it comes to playlists and control of the music. So,
Yeah, well, but can you see the vision of democracy? No,
I don't like this.
I wouldn't always get what
like this music.
I wouldn't. It's another that's reminding me of two different things in *Halt and Catch Fire*, which I would recommend as a TV series. I'd mentioned it last week, I think, but it's like the early days of the computer, the first computer, like home computer making and the ideas, and it's got like a Steve Jobs style character, like with like the vision, and then it's got like a programmer who's brilliant, and then it's got like a hardware guy who's brilliant, but it's actually like I mean the judge of it is like as like maybe once or twice in the whole thing that I was like, come on. So the tech stuff they did, and I sort of learned a couple of things I didn't realize. I didn't realize that like the first browser came out on Steve Jobs's those next step computers.
Ooh.
And you've got the character going, I don't know why it's got to be titanium though. I can't remember what it's made of, but like some of those early innovations, like I think it was Photoshop, not photo, something else. Like those early innovations came out on Steve Jobs' non-Apple kind of side computers.
Right,
I didn't even realise. But that has the sort of visionary guy that talks and gets everyone out of like the one guy's just kind of given up. Another he sort of pulls him back out and goes, I saw what you wrote and I think it's brilliant. And it gets everyone on board. And I feel like that's a person that is missing from my life at the moment. I kind of don't really have, I'm not all in on doing it for myself. I think like there's a whole art to that, like getting an idea across to people, getting them excited about it, and then everybody like moving forward with like a clear vision of the same thing. Because you can go to someone with your idea and go, oh, can you help me with this? And then they give you something that you just weren't expecting. And this is a thing of, well, they might have actually made it better, but I can't tell because I've sort of got the picture I've got in my head. And that's the sort of the micromanager problem is like he pictures it a certain way and then when you do something different, he freaks out and wants you to change it to the thing that was in his brain instead of like going, maybe there's some value to this thing that has been thought about by a week for someone,
I think there's like degrees of this. It's like there's this idea which should be a picture and not the actual solution. I think the execution. So an example of a recent idea in our house, it's very microcosm. I was sitting we've got 2 dogs, we've got steps running up to the road in the garden. So I'm sitting in the garden, the dogs, every time a cat walks past us, and the dogs race up the steps. It's like and you're sitting there. And then, and I was sitting there, having my cup of coffee. I was like, we should put a gate on the bottom of the stairs.
Amazing.
It's like there was no need to sell this idea.
Right, yeah.
There was no sale required because benefits were immediately obvious.
Yeah.
But what I pictured in my head was a particular style of gate, and I was going to get someone in and build something, and then Nick's like, well, I've got a welding kit. And I was like, you've got a welding kit, but you've never built a gate. What would this gate look like? This is our house. I've got some scrap metal over here. I was like, ugh. But you know what? He's done a beautiful job. It's not at all how I pictured it, but it definitely stops the dogs running up the stairs, and it looks very nice.
Yeah.
So,
like, what's the essence of the idea? Is it that it's a beautiful gate that was really expensive?
Yeah, or that it's a beautiful gate that's very handcrafted by your loving husband. That's the essence of the idea is a gate to stop the dogs running up the. That's the sort of.
Yeah, but there's a lot of versions of that which you obviously pictured when you're.
Yes, when he said he was going to weld it. Like,
no.
But then equally,
part of the idea is this
is that it looks amazing. Yeah. But then equally, as he pointed out, could take us months to get somebody to build this, get somebody in. They go, I'm not coming out just for one gate. I don't want to do it. And then this way we used up scrap metal, which we already had and we found. And so there's this he was feeding into my whole sustainability values. So, but I think there's that. It's quite a good analogy for like, I've imagined, let's say, for example, an operating system that is free and open source, for example, which, everyone thinks, wow, that's an amazing idea. I want to go and work on that idea. That's brilliant. And then it's like, oh no, but I imagined it looking like this. It's like, well, hang on a minute. That's not what I meant. Just a moment, please. That's not, we haven't got the resources for that. That doesn't feed into our sustainability values. I don't have a welding kit, all this kind of stuff.
And how do you know, like, whether when someone's done something different to what you've imagined, how much of that is, because the first instinct is like, I haven't explained myself well enough.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I have not. No, I need to explain. We need to do another round of changes. And how much of that is like, you've just got to be like, not too precious about your ideas sometimes and just kind of like go.
But it's like sometimes when somebody nicks you something. I'm trying to think the last time. I do have this face on me, for example, in the DIY Ideas project, where there's a but now, 10 years into a marriage, I get generally, I can't remember the last time Nick made something that I didn't like. It might not be what I set out to get, but I think in early days I'd have kind of gone.
The idea is not the thing. Like, the thing is a completely separate thing to the idea. And so if you sort of have to falling in love with the actual thing that actually exists is another step. It's another process, and you'll be lucky if you get that sometimes. And especially if it's taken a lot of work and it's taken a long time, you can sort of fall out of love with the idea while you're working on it. And then it just turns into a grind. And then this thing that is a result of the idea just seems terrible. And there's like this whole perseverance that you have to do in the face of that. And like David F. Sandberg, he was told told by an experienced film director, he's directing his first Hollywood film, he's come from YouTube, like this goes like, you will hate the first cut of this film. You will hate it. You will think it's terrible. And he's like, it's not me. And then when he sees the first cut, he's like, I absolutely hate it. What have I done? I've wasted so many people's time. But you have to, it's just the reason that's advice told to you is because you have to, like, to be a professional, to really do justice to an idea, you have to push through that unpleasant phase of its implementation, keep going, because on the other side of that is where you have something that you can fall in love with all over again and does connect back to that original idea, or doesn't, is something different.
But I think going back to the gate.
Okay, the gate.
I got shown it, it's like, look, this is what I'm picturing in my head. This is what I'm going to do. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm with you so far. And if it's not very good, we'll get someone in. And then it's like, but I now, whenever I open it, I look at it and I look at all the bits and I love it because it's like, it's made, we sort of made it together as well. Yeah. And there was a conversation and it was made with all the intentions on delivering on not just my idea about the gate, but my ideas about the world as well. So it's quite, do you know what I mean? It's there's some nice touches. There's like, that's that bit off the door, because we kept the original door in the house we bought. It had this steel thing on it, which we thought was unattractive, but we kept the steel, and then Nick sort of chopped it up and added it into the gate. So it's, it's got some touches. I like it.
I think it can be dangerous to show someone a work in progress.
That's true.
Especially if they're of limited imagination. But partly it's unfair to expect someone to be able to see where something's going. But I'm guilty of showing people works in progress and then... But I don't know, like one of the worst things is someone like not understanding the ways in which something can be a work in progress, and then they don't like it. And they don't understand that that's because, we've got to fix this and fix this and fix this. But I just wanted you to see, I have created its essence. Look, the thing, you click on the thing and it goes to the thing. And it's but you've got to be careful about that.
I think it's to do with having the person you're showing it to, having experienced the work in progress, having the tools. So it's like if you show somebody a website in progress, that can be awfully dangerous because they have no idea like what work it involves, or the builder brings you into the bathroom and shows you like two things and you're like, oh my god, this. But if you've been involved in building work before, you can see where it's heading or what the layout's going to do. And I do think it's not. I think it's not just imagination requires some experience of what's possible. Yeah. And I think so. I think it's not just a lack of imagination.
Yeah.
You need to have imagination and the Lego blocks.
Yeah. Also, obviously, the lack of imagination is the response to when you're just annoyed at someone.
Yes, obviously.
You don't understand.
You just don't get it. You just got no dreams. You just don't get it. Yeah.
I was thinking about the role of detail in all this, because like when you think about the idea being sort of out of focus and sort of like quite general, so much of what makes something, and you mentioned it, you see a little detail on your gate, like so much of what you fall in love with the actual thing is the details. And some good advice I've seen it, like, and this was another I watch a lot of like game development stuff, because a lot of that is sort of oriented around like a solo developer sort of making something. But one piece of advice I saw was like put in like some good sound early on, or like a particle effect or something when you do something, because it's going to just like, it's not important to the overall, like how's the AI going to work, how's the gameplay going to be, but it sort of like gives you a little hint of that, what you're going to fall in love with when it's finished, which is those little things. And we, again, like Steve Jobs will, it's all about those tiny little details, and those really, like, that's what sets something apart when it's finished.
Totally.
But how much are those details ever a part of the original idea?
I think there are just different types of ideas. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I think it's like or there's different people who have ideas with different levels of detail. I mean, ultimately, you don't imagine something that isn't going to have beautiful details that people are going to fall in love with. You don't say, "Oh no, this is just going to be a thing. It's going to be really dull. People aren't going to love it." You know what I mean? You imagine that there's going to be this game that people are going to love, and then you've got to think of like, what are they going to love about it? And I think, it's like, but that's in the execution, I think, those beautiful details.
And then it comes from sort of like the craft of the person implementing it. It comes from their experience of what works and what doesn't work at that sort of more day-to-day scale, at that more sort of detailed scale. Yeah. But it's something that's easy to ignore when you're creating something, but it's really important. And it's why the implementation is so much more significant to me than the idea in the first place. It's like a well done bad idea is so much better to me than like a really terribly done like brilliant idea.
Good idea. Yeah. So the craft element is very doable for a very contained idea. But if you have a really complex idea or a really complex vision, you require all the people, all the crafts to come together well. Yeah. And that is that's a next level of complexity. It's like, so let's say the developer gets it, but the brand designer doesn't get it, or the marketing person doesn't get it, or the tone of voice person. You only need one craft to not be good, and suddenly it's just not all hanging together properly.
Yeah. And that's a question of leadership and like communicating of a vision, and being able to, I guess, the person in charge being able to articulate why the copy, like that it's the copy that's off, or that it's the
or that it's all of us together. Like it, that the vision piece is the bit as well to go, we can do this, not you and you. Like it's like we, and bringing everybody together and making sure everybody understands the journey that they're on. She says, waving her arms around a lot, which is what you would see if you're watching the video.
Yeah, and there's ways to structure projects to sort of like try and make sure you get, well, I mean, this is kind of a cliche even in our industry, but you sort of, it's better, instead of trying to kind of have a huge grand vision of something and trying to like build the whole thing all at once, it's sort of better and more motivating for people to build a small version of it and then develop that into a slightly better version and a better version, so that you sort of keep you learn along the way, instead of sort of like putting years into something and then you see the end product and it's like, well, that's not what I was hoping for, and we can't change it now, kind of feeling.
Yeah.
I think we have this idea that we generate ideas, and also this notion of originality, like it's an original idea, or it's like that person is a hack, that person just copied my idea or copied someone else's idea, and like, but I kind of feel like It's probably more like we catch ideas, and different people are able to catch those ideas. They're sort of in the air. And part of the reason for that is that kind of there's no real original ideas. They're all like, I see this one thing, I see this other thing, and I put them together and I'm like, oh, that's a new thing. And I think if people see the same things at the same time, then there's a high chance probably that they're going to have the same idea. And maybe there's nothing quite so magical about ideas as maybe it is all just like synthesis of existing concepts. It's like a sexual reproduction process.
I think fundamental. So I think this idea that they're all out there floating around, and people, you catch a couple of ideas, plug them together, and have a third idea, and I think that's very true, which is why you end up with like weird trends in names. Everyone thinks they've sat down with their child and thought of the most brilliant, amazing name, and turns up in the playground and there's like calls their child's name and 50 children answer. Because you don't really necessarily know what it is that prompted your amazing idea. And we're all experiencing the world in a very similar way. As humans, our needs are fundamentally, all of us have the same needs and the same problems at different levels. And so therefore we're kind of having ideas about the same sets of solutions, I think. I can't imagine that,
How different are we? But it feels like it came from inside.
It did. It always comes from your soul.
And this is why it's so hard to like, I hear ideas are this precious thing that you must not share and you must protect and you must sue people that try and steal your ideas and you must shout at people. But it's like, no one's ideas are that original, really. Like, no, it's about who you are and how you work so much more than how brilliant your idea was. I feel like I'm saying that in different ways, but Well,
I think it's. I mean, I also think that the negative energy of having a go at somebody for nicking your idea is just, I can't be bothered. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just great. Okay, yeah, it's your idea. Fine. I'm just gonna move on. But maybe that's a function of being somebody that just has ideas, and therefore you're like.
There is something annoying where, like, you are working with someone and that you can just tell that they're just that they've got the idea that they feel was their idea, and that you're trying to like talk about something, move it forward, but like you're also dealing with this sort of like possessiveness in different people, and then it's sort of like it can derail things, and it's quite important to not be precious about your ideas if you want to move it forwards.
I think in a work context as well, particularly.
That's what I was talking about.
Every context, you've got to also be aware that you have an idea and that you might be inadvertently trying to sell your idea in every conversation, which is like the ultimate bias, really. It's like, I know what will sort this problem out, and this is what I just mention it again. Have I mentioned it before? And then I think being conscious and aware when you do that so that people can shoot it down.
And I think we have a sensitivity to people doing that as well. I think like when people are doing that, it doesn't take much for you to realise that someone's like, yeah, right, I get it. Like, I get it. You want us to do your idea. But
also, the people, it's a similar sort of behaviour on the subject of like having the experience that has brought you to your idea. So every idea is just based on like what you did before, really.
Yeah.
And it can't be like if I've never done knitting, I'm not going to have an idea that involves knitting as a solution. Do you know what I mean? So it's like people come to a meeting, they're like, hi, I used to work at Google and Amazon, and this is the solution that I'm providing. It's like, yeah, great, that's great. But yeah, we get it. You worked at Google and Amazon, but that's not quite the world we're in right now. So how about this? To add into your mix. So I find it impossible not to be going, you talking about your idea again? Oh yeah. But I'm sure I do it all the time as well. So
I'm sure we all do. We love our ideas.
I mean, mine are the best though.
Here's one thing that I wanted to sneak in. Remembering ideas. Techniques for remembering ideas that to allow you to connect back to the thing that got you excited about the idea. How do you do it?
I don't know that I do it. I don't know that. But I literally this week had a phone call which involved me going, "Oh, we should do this," and the person said, "That's what you said last week." I was like, "Oh, great! I've had the same idea 2 weeks in a row. Must be a good idea then. Let's do it." Literally. So yeah, I don't know. I'd even emailed it to her as a to-do item.
Really?
I'd totally forgotten about it.
Spacey Ivanka. Because I'm
going to busy and tired.
Yeah, leading to space. Because this is like a lifelong. When you have a musical idea, they're very fleeting, and you think it's that thing. You have a melody going around your head as you're trying to get to sleep, and the worst thing you can do is to be like, "I'll remember that in the morning," because you will never ever remember that in the morning in the way it was, and it's never right. And even like the time between I've got this tune in my head and starting up the software to be able to like plugging in, finding a sound that's sort of like close enough and like trying to play it, like you can lose. Sometimes it can just be like an accent on one of the notes, or like just the rhythm, or like it's the melody. There's so many different things to it that make it that if you lose it, it's just gone forever. And that's one of the most heartbreaking things about like, that's one of the things that, so I've sort of got so many different things I've tried over the years, but the only thing I can really do these days is like, I just try and I write down some words if I've got them, but I always try and like sing it into a microphone, into a recording device, because I will forget that melody thing. But then like when you go and listen back to that, it's really hard to get excited about it again. So many like things that I could turn into songs if I just like went through that slightly painful process of trying to reconnect with the idea that I got excited about when I was walking along or trying to get to sleep.
But yeah, but I think that what's hardest in all of these things to do with ideas is the capturing the emotion of the idea. So there's the thing it's solving, and then there's how you're going to feel when it becomes alive, when it becomes solved, when it becomes a thing. Because it's like the gate thing. It's like, it's not just a gate to stop the dogs. It's a gate that I'm going to feel happy to look at, that I'm going to be happy to open, that I'm going to feel happy for guests to walk down. And I think what you're talking about with the music thing is like the nuance. You know, yes, it's like do. Obviously, I do not have musical ideas, but it's like, but you know, it's not just the opening and shutting of the gate, is it?
Yeah,
it's the accent on the tone, it's the mood, it's the and those things are so hard to communicate.
Yeah. And communicate or remember or like kind of come back to. But then if they do exist in you.
They do.
Like one of the hardest things I had to do in like a year and a half ago nearly now was like choose an idea to devote my runway might do. Like what am I going to work on? And you have a lot of like, do you choose an original far out idea? Do you choose something that you just want to do that seems frivolous and you can't see how it's going to make any money? Do you choose an idea that you have because you've got a lot of experience in doing that sort of thing, so that you know you can kind of pull it off? And that's kind of where what I ended up doing. I was like, I'm going to follow this. I'm going to kind of bring back this app that I did like 9 years ago, and I'm going to kind of redo it, finally kind of revisit it, sort of get it up to date. Because I've learned a lot, and I know like it was like being at what I could trust myself to be able to do a good job of was how I made the decision. And it's sort of come to a year later. I've probably spent 1,000 hours on this project now, and I've probably sold I know I've sold like $134 worth of app. And I plugged how much I'm getting paid per hour to work on this project into a thing, and it's like 11 cents. And like, it's like, but I'm trying to do that thing of, well, just because an idea is tricky and it's not paying off straight away and it's a certain kind of idea, like you shouldn't just abandon it at the first sign that it's maybe not the right one. But that all goes in, that kind of experience all goes into the choosing of the next idea, where you're like, well, and it can lead to a real paralysis where you're like, well, I don't know what's going to work. And then all you can really do is just come back to the present moment and just like do the first thing that you see. And that's probably how I've sort of spent a lot of my time. As I've become more skeptical about which idea to choose, I'm like, well, I'm just going to do what I feel like doing today.
There's various ways of thinking about and answering that. It's in that whole, if you can, you've got to, there's a bit of doing the idea that you can be bothered, that that you're going to sustain your interest, that you have the excitement for it. I know certainly the husband, who is a sales and marketing person, would have gone, what's your business model? Who are you going to sell it to? Where's the money going to be? Let's make a business plan. Let's do a marketing strategy. Let's do if you can't fill in those blanks, then the idea may well be really exciting and interesting, but it's never going to make any money or whatever it be. But even when you do all those things, you're still not going to know what's going to work.
Yeah, you don't know. And I think what I'd say, another way of looking at what you just said was like, you sort of have to picture, like, if I successfully pull this off, what does that look like? And, I've chosen a happiness app because I just had this, I kind of felt like it was a bit like self-indulgent for a while, but then I thought like, but if it works and it makes more people happy and I can get it to like a few thousand people. So many of the problems we're having across the sort of political spectrum and just everything, if people just had a bit more self-awareness and were a bit happier, I think they would spend less time being angry on the internet and being horrible to each other, and maybe a bit more time like doing stuff that's, Yeah.
But I think the key thing you've set there is like, that's what Nick always goes, which is some marketing philosophy this way, which is start with the end in mind. So it's like having that picture of where you want to get to. It's not like only talking about building the app is only one bit of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so like that's the how of the idea, but the idea itself is giving more people a tool to help them be happier, or making a tool available to more people to help them be happier. That's kind of a setting the vision differently than build an app.
Yeah, you sort of have to keep focus on, this is my vision for this is the dream, this is the outcome that I want, but also in terms of the people involved as well. I want the people involved to be happy. And I think having that there would help people be a bit less precious and a bit like funny about ideas, and be a bit more flexible about kind of moving forwards and letting things go and letting something be what it needs to be. Because if your vision is just a thing that does a thing, then there's no scope for kind of like movement. So maybe if the vision is something more highfalutin, then you can just throw a lot of work. You can try something completely different, even though this was my first attempt. I spent a year on it, but actually that wasn't the way forwards to achieve the vision.
I think that's part of it, for sure.
That's part of it.
Sorry. Well, no, that's it. That's the answer, but that's the emotion. That's the vision. That's the
emotion,
big objective.
the vision, the picture.
And the how is like details, man. Details. Is it going to be an app? Is it going to be a notepad? I don't know.
Yeah.
What I think about ideas that is more important than anything at the moment is that like there's so many things that are all messed up that I don't care who has the idea, but have it, let's get behind it, let's crack on with it, because there's work to be done.
Yeah, and the reason this podcast is such an important thing in my life is because Ivanka makes me think, like, keep thinking about things that, left to my own devices, I would not be thinking about most of the time. And if I am thinking about the fact that we're doomed to climate change at least once a week, there is a much higher chance that an idea will occur to me than if I never think about it at all. So you've got to expose yourself. And that's why, like, doing this podcast, I hope has some value beyond just like the two of us, like shooting the If you like the podcast, you can go to grandpodcast.com. You can join our intimidating Slack by supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/grandpodcast. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter.
At Ivanka on Twitter. You can find me at Michael Forrest on Twitter. I'm not so active on some other things as well. MichaelForrestMusic.com too. I did this music that you're listening to between the things. It's on Spotify and things, so
it's real.
It's real. It's real music. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening.
Good to hear.co.uk/free. Restaurantsbrighton.co.uk, BrightonNaturalHealthCentre.org.uk. See you next week. Bye.